What's up, everyone? This is Sarah Hudson.
And this is Evan Bogart.
And welcome to Right to the Source.
Listen, we all know creativity can be your best friend and your worst enemy. On Right to the Source, our podcast, we dive deep inside the minds of creative beings to find out how they do it. Today, let's find out how John Feldmann does it.
So let it go and let's go right to the source.
We create a mental atmosphere.
Right to the source. Right to the source.
So this episode's guest, John Feldmann, has written and produced huge records for Blink-182, Good Charlotte, 5 Seconds of Summer, and Panic at the Disco, among countless others. He's an incredibly passionate activist and all-around uber rock star, literally. He's the lead singer of the iconic rock band Goldfinger.
And I can swear as much as I want. I can swear. Okay.
Please.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, Evan.
Hi, John.
Hi. Hi, John.
Hi.
We start every episode with a segment that we like to call A Rose and a Thorn. Hit it, Sarah.
Sing with us if you catch it.
A rose and a thorn, a rose and a thorn, a rose and a thorn.
Yeah.
I was going to keep going.
Did you love that song? We just wrote that.
Okay, so Sarah, tell us what a rose and a thorn is.
Okay, so
You can auto-tune mine, right? You got Melodyne?
Yeah, we'll do that.
we're gonna melodyne all of our vocals. Trust me. Okay, so basically, a rose and a thorn is a rose is something you're incredibly grateful for right now, and a thorn is something that's literally a thorn in your side, and you need to let it go. It can be anything, something massive, something small, whatever it is. So we're going to start with our rose because gratitude should always come first, and we'll end with the thorn, and we're going to sage it away. Okay, so what's a rose in your life right now?
That I do what I love for a living, that I'm able to like write music. I mean, because without being able to create for me, like I get really anxious and I get really stuck in my head and I don't feel like I'm really living life unless I'm creating something. And I was thinking, I wrote this song yesterday for a band that we don't know when this thing's coming out, so I can just second say the band that probably will never. I love your dabbing mannequin over there, by the way.
Yes, thank you.
This band probably will never go anywhere. I've been around long enough to know. I mean, and I had the best time knowing no one will ever hear the song.
Right.
I still had the best. I was writing with a friend of mine that brought this band to me, and is this loveliest guy ever. I can't mention names because then they'll know who the band I'm talking about.
Right.
You know, but it's like, and it was just, I was able to create, and I wrote, probably 80% of the lyrics, and I was just able to kind of write something that I was feeling at the time based on our therapy session, and that I get to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, really, at the end of the day, I guess most of my money comes from producing, but I make money as a songwriter,
right?
And I get to do that. And I don't have to let go. So
my God.
That's my rose for the day.
Okay, amazing rose.
What's your rose, Sarah?
I'm going to say, I feel like I have so many roses, which is a good thing to say, but I'm going to say, as cheesy as it sounds, my 2 dogs. And they just are like bundles of joy to me and happiness.
Names?
Gypsy and Magic, and just the unconditional love that comes from animals is something that, I don't know, it like saves my life almost. They're like my little Xanaxes, I say. Like I hold them and I'm just like, I remember, when we say like, how do you, if you fly business, how do you go back to coach? And like this sort of, they ground me. They like make me feel like nothing else matters but their love. I don't know. I'm obsessed with animals, and they're my little babies.
I get that. I know John gets that.
I
too.
get it. I got dogs.
So those are my roses, my 2 little roses.
I love your dogs.
My rose this morning when I woke up was, and it's been this way for a while now, which is so interesting. I bought this house like 2 years ago, and I was never like a garden person ever. But the people I bought the house from, they had planted all of these like fruit and vegetable trees and plants and like spices and like flowers, et cetera, et cetera. So I've taken it upon me on the weekends to like really have this like green thumb. And I woke up this morning, and it must have been overnight. Like I have these like 6-foot tall long stem roses everywhere that are just like growing everywhere.
Gorgeous.
And I know that like I had something to do with them. So I just feel like it's like it's kind of the way I feel about my dog. In the sense that like I'm like these are lives that like I'm contributing to, and then they're like paying me back with this like beauty and this smell of like roses and stuff like that. So I know it's kind of actually cheesy to say that my rose today is actually a rose, but my roses today are actually my roses. Like I swear when I went to bed last night they were closed, and when I woke up this morning they were everywhere, like red and pink and yellow. And
amazing.
I'm like I feel like I could open like a flower shop if this songwriting thing doesn't work out.
Yeah.
I've become a florist.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's my rose.
I'm going to be a barista for sure if this doesn't work out. I'm opening a... Have you had my vegan shake? If I made that for you? The vegan coffee shake?
I've had the matcha.
Okay.
The matcha's good.
They're all good.
Yeah.
Everything I make.
It's incredible, though, to me that we still say if this doesn't work out. You know, like it's just incredible that mentality, it like never goes away.
Yeah, that's my thorn. So that my thorn is comparing and negativity. That's what I want to release. Like me comparing myself, like comparing
despair.
Compare and despair. So my therapist or what my friend's therapist calls it.
Yeah, and it's not like there's some competition for who does better.
We all do it though. I feel like it's our ego and our nature to do it. But there is no. But we're.
I feel that way sometimes. Like you can be excited and happy for somebody else and still feel jealous that you didn't do it. It's a weird feeling to feel them both.
Right.
Like it's like weird to be like, oh my God, like good for them, and like, oh, bad for me. Like why? Why can't it just be good for them?
Right.
Why does it have to be bad for you?
It's like one of the hardest things to do, I think, is like, it's just like human nature, I feel.
Just that voice that says that it's not, that
you're not good enough.
That it's not going to work out. And that was the last song you'll ever write.
Right.
That you know what I mean? That you're just going to be, I don't know. Like, what am I going to be doing? I guess my worst case scenario, like doing some Vegas show, like some ska punk super group of Less Than Jake, Real Big Fish, and Goldfinger. Pick it up. Like, that doesn't even sound that bad, to be honest.
I always
It sounds like fun.
It could be really, that could be fucking awesome.
I always think my worst case scenario is there's this writer artist named Faraz, and he plays piano, and we sing together to harmonies, and we love all these
it's
like
beautiful.
We love these like show tunes and Cher and all these sort of 70s 60s songs, and I'm like, worst case, we just work at the Dresden Room in Silver Lake.
Oh, you guys are the new, what are they? Marty and
Edie or something. Like this little old couple that plays and
that's
sings
totally
show
you
tunes.
and Faraz. I love that.
I'm like, okay, that's worst case scenario. I'm still singing. I'm still, I mean, it's just funny that we all have these like worst case scenarios.
You guys are like doing Gnarls Barkley covers and stuff.
Right, exactly.
Which
Okay.
sounds fun. I
So-
mean, right?
What?
Yeah, I'm like, that's not too bad.
What's
That's
your
cool.
thorn?
My thorn, I think, it's kind of along the lines of yours, but I think it's more to do with self-criticism and just in my head, about, and I do think you were saying earlier, like Instagram, it's a big part of our lives in an amazing way, but also in a really difficult way because people post what they want you to see, so you're comparing yourself to this sort of larger than life
Greatest hits, top 10. That's what people post.
right, exactly.
Top 10.
So you're like, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not young enough, I'm not this enough. It's all constant, like, it's kind of piggybacking off of what you were saying, like, I'm not good enough. I think it's just this constant critiquing. I don't know, I'm going to say a sort of self-criticism, self-doubt too. That doubt of like, is this the last thing I do? Am I ever going to have another hit? Am I going to be, I don't know, all of it. Because I want to live like the best life that I can. So
#best life.
But then there it is, to be grateful instead of resentful. And
Right.
that's it.
My
So that's my thorn.
my thorns are both of your thorns, but my thorns also, I'm just going to relate it to my rose. So as much as I love my garden, I hate my squirrels. The squirrels in my yard, they eat all of my fruit before I can pick it. And this morning when I was out there, last night also when I went to bed, all these figs were coming in, and this morning they were like half of them on the ground, half eaten, like even just a bite. And I'm like, I gotta do something, but I don't want to hurt the squirrels because I love animals.
Don't hurt
No, I know,
them.
I don't. So I'm just having to release. I want to release today that the squirrels are gonna eat some of my fruit and are gonna mess up my garden, even though I'm spending so much time on it. That they are going to do that. And I think, to me, the thorn to my rose is the squirrels who are relentless and who don't care that I spent all this time growing my garden.
I had this neighbor that lived in the back house, and she had like this crazy dog, and the dog attacked a possum this one night, like really bad. And we got there just in time. Like the possum was playing possum, so you never know what's going on. Laying on
Is
the
that where they
ground.
get the term from?
That's where they got, and just laying on the ground. But we knew the possum was alive, and we rushed him to the vet, and he was like blood everywhere, torn up, like this poor little possum, right?
Man.
And the dog was like, this violent, crazy dog, and we got him all stitched up. We got the possum like whatever, and then we released him back in the wild a week later when he had kind of recovered enough, but they had shaved half his body. He had all this it was like this really sketchy looking possum at the end. And then 2 days after we released him back in the wild, right outside our bedroom window at like 2 a.m, we heard this weird noise, like a scratching noise. And we looked up on the fence that walked, and we saw that same possum had walked on the fence, scratched on our window to wake us up. And we opened the door, and the possum was there looking in our window, and we could tell it was sick because it was all shaved, half shaved possum. And behind him was his mate, like the female possum, and his 2 little kids on the fence, looking in the window, like saying to us, thank you for saving my life. I'm worth, like, my life is worth something. It was the coolest and weirdest thing ever.
It just makes me.
I want to cry right now.
I'm literally quivering of like that is
like
so
animals
amazing.
Are so much more connected than we are to what's happening.
Because they have no ego. Animals have no ego.
Just so grateful to be alive and to be able to share this life with his family. It was the coolest thing.
Oh, I love that.
Don't kill the squirrels, Evan.
Don't
No,
kill
I would never do
them.
that. That's what I'm saying. Like, I would never kill the squirrels, but I just have to accept that there's nothing I can do about the squirrels.
Maybe turn it into gratitude and say
That's what I
feeding
did.
them.
That's exactly what I told Z. I was like, we have to look at it like we are sustaining their life.
Yes.
By providing them some of our fruits and vegetables. Some of our bounty is
the
for
fruits of your labor.
Is for the squirrels.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, let's sage away.
Hold on.
Let's sage away our thorns.
Okay, I'm gonna light the sage.
And let them all
All right.
go. Yes. Evan is lighting a piece of sage, white sage, right now.
It smells so good.
Usually during a session, I'm going right to it, by the way. I'm just going to go right into it
Yes.
right now, right into it.
Oh my God, go.
Because we just wrote a song. I've written a lot with Evan, with a bunch of different artists through the long time that I've been doing this. And Sarah, we have known each other for a while as well.
We have.
And I usually we'll have a conversation with the artist. We'll talk about life and everything.
A therapy session.
All of it. Yeah, the whole thing, breakup, relationship, death, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll kind of step out and try and find, because, I do believe that songs wait for me in different areas,
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I actually, I'll leave, I'll go drive in my car and go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But, the worst thing ever is when I leave the room with all the information. I know I have everything I need to come up with like a good start.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come. Like when you said in the beginning of the podcast, when you're like, the creative energy, how it can be the best thing ever when you come up with this.
Yeah.
Great, and it can be the worst thing ever when it's not coming.
Yeah.
And once in a while, I'll leave the room and it's really just me. And I know it's up to me because the artist may or may not have that much musical ability or
sure.
be a great singer, but not the greatest lyricist or whatever it may be. And I'll leave the room and then I'll be sitting out there by myself going, oh shit, it's been 28 minutes.
Right.
And I have nothing still.
Right.
Oh,
No, it's the worst. But I mean, then it wasn't meant to come at that time, I guess. That's the thing,
That is the thing. And then sometimes I'll come back and someone else will come up with that
Right.
start. And it doesn't have, that's the great thing about writing, especially when you're collaborating with other magical people like you too.
Mm-hmm.
You can trust that if it doesn't come from you, it'll come from someone else.
Exactly.
But it's supposed to be that way because nothing happens by mistake. As I think we all believe that everything does have a purpose. And
1,000%.
Has
Yes.
your creativity like changed over the years? Like that process you do when you write songs. Is that something that you always did? Like when you first started?
Well, when I first started, it was just me. It was me and a bass guitar. I started as a bass player in a band, and I was the principal writer in my punk band, Family Crisis, back in 1981 when I started playing music, but way long time ago. And so it was just me. And so the idea, obviously, coming from a band and coming from a punk rock background, it was all me. It was never really about sharing.
Right.
What we do now is very different. So I still have that mentality of like, look, I feel like I should be able to at least start something,
right,
if not finish it. Because a lot of times I know as all of us as writers, we feel like we have to lean on each other, which is sometimes great. And sometimes I feel like, what happened to my roots if I can't finish a song? And Goldfinger is that, my band is that avenue for me where I write everything.
It's
in my
your
band.
vehicle. It's
Exactly.
like your art.
Yes.
Now, let's go back though to when was like the first moment you remember feeling that creative bug? Like how old were you? Where were you? What was like the first thing you can remember where you were like, okay.
Look, musicals have been, my parents were super Catholic,
right?
Baptized CCD every week. I was in an incredibly religious house, and so we weren't allowed any outside. It was like either Christian music or musicals.
And where was this? Where were you
in
born?
Northern California? I grew up in
Okay.
a town called Saratoga, which is kind of near San Jose, Santa Cruz, Bay Area. So when I brought home, so the first thing Sound of Music was the first kind of music I ever heard.
Amazing.
It was my dad's favorite ever. And so it was Sound of Music.
I feel like you couldn't get more different.
Yeah.
Than what you ended up doing.
That usually happens too. I grew up I went to Catholic school my whole life, so I wanted nothing to do with anything to do with Catholic school and Christian religion, and so I went complete opposite. That usually happens, I feel, when you grow up super religious. Either you stay or you like rebel. I don't know. That's a whole other conversation.
But part of no, it's true though.
We can get into religion, but let's focus on our.
You know what's funny? Just so we whatever stay on point for just a second is when I go to church now, which I go to on Christmas and Easter. We go to church. And my wife is a super atheist, and my kids don't. My kids aren't really old enough to care about the idea of. I think a lot of people get religion because they're scared to death or what's going to happen. On the other side, all that stuff.
Right.
And there's some peaceful feeling I get in church because I was so.
It's that in our DNA or something.
And if you think about the idea of what we learned about like coveting your neighbor's wife and murder, it's really like the philosophy behind the purity of it is great.
Yeah.
Like the money stuff is not so great.
And essentially,
When you say the money stuff, do you mean like them collecting money or something like that?
The idea of like letting a priest be self-supporting in his community and being able to like help people isn't a bad thing. But I think I just went to Rome and seeing like where a lot of the money kind of goes. It's like that's unnecessary in the big picture of spiritual journey.
Essentially, we're all talking about the same thing. In my opinion, at the end of the day, it's like it's some sort of force that's bigger than us that. Whether you call it God or Jesus or whatever you call it, I don't know.
I just think I was walking with my dogs yesterday on the hike up here right by your house, and
cool.
I was just thinking, gravity is exactly perfect. It's not like just too much where we're being forced to the ground,
right?
And it's not just a little where we have to push ourselves.
I love
like
that.
Gravity is just perfect. It's like the science of life is so worked out.
Yeah.
It's been vetted perfectly.
Totally.
Yeah.
Just gravity alone. I was thinking this is just
no,
this.
it's mind blowing. I know that's amazing. I love that thought.
But even like our bodies, like
our bodies,
like the little things that if like one thing didn't work that way, our whole body would fall apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wiener still works at 51.
Thank God.
At 51.
That's actually the number one question that our listeners
That
have
is.
been
Thank you
asking.
for you got to the question we wanted to know.
Okay.
Okay, so back to you were raised, you were in a Christian Catholic home, or you heard Sound of Music. That was the moment when you were like, "Oh, this is calling me to something," or
I think
did you then start to sing along? Did you play instruments? Like, how did you start?
I love that.
Your musical.
I just imagine John twirling on like a hillside, right, with his
The
arms
hills
out.
are alive.
I know there's. I think Do Re Mi is probably the song that I can kind of like connect the dots between.
Yes, like I want to know that moment you sang something or you played something and you were like, "Oh my God,
I need to do this.
Yeah,
I have to do
my
this.
dad was so into the Sound of Music that I just I couldn't like it because I mean by the time I became who I am at say 12 or 13 when I started pushing back and saying this is who I am. My dad was a nuclear physicist. He was the man that built the fuel that put the rocket on the moon.
Wow.
Smartest man I'd ever met. He was in a wheelchair his whole life. Last man to
Wow.
get polio in America, right? So he was like this, a very unhappy guy in a wheelchair, knowing that a week later they got the cure for polio and he was stuck in a wheelchair, super bummed.
Holy shit.
So he had all these ideas for me, having his firstborn son, that I was going to be an engineer and I was going to kind of keep going on the path. And my brain I wasn't built for that. I wasn't built I couldn't get, I think algebra was like the end of my math career, because geometry was, I think, year 2 in high school. And I just couldn't grasp the idea of all of it. I just couldn't get it. So I was failing out of school and that made my dad was super bummed. And so I wasn't like singing along to Sound of Music because my father loved Sound of Music. So I had to push back. But I mean, he took me to see Star Wars, and I owe a lot, my work ethic, I owe a lot to my father. And he's passed away 9 years now. So I've got a very different perspective of, my relationship with him now that I'm a father and I'm older. As a kid, it was just like, you want one thing, I want one thing.
Right.
You don't believe in me, you don't believe in music. He never supported me, so that was all I focused on. But now I can focus on this stuff that does matter, which is the positive, because I have to look at what's right in my life.
Of course.
That's the only way I can win. I can't slip into I'm a victim, like this is what wrong, I'm a victim of whatever. It has to be positive. And so even with my father passed away, I got to look at it that way. So but as a kid, I couldn't say Do Re Mi. I can't connect a Ramones song 1 2 to do a dear, the idea of how the simplicity
That's cool.
of the song, but I can now as an older guy.
You could cover it like that, though.
I could.
Yeah.
That would be an epic. Maybe I could do the whole record, Goldfinger style, just like
Goldfinger
pop-punk
does
style.
Sound of Music.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
So-
But great idea. Great idea.
So were you in, when did you start, did you get in bands? Were you doing your own thing? Like, how did it lead up to Goldfinger starting? Was that your first?
So Star Wars was the first album that actually was at wherever it was, Walgreens or whatever store would have sold albums back then. Star Wars was the first album I put on, and I just like the melodies were so hooky.
Yeah.
If you think about John Williams, what he wrote on that soundtrack, it's so hooky. And so I remember listening to that. That was the first thing. And then everyone that I kind of grew up with liked that, like Kiss, the band Kiss, which, I couldn't understand it because lyrically I didn't connect. They were singing so.
Well, I mean, no disrespect to my parents, but like the Kiss they were terrible lyricists. I mean,
Right.
It's not like
It was kind of kitschy.
yeah, it was
you
kitschy.
know.
It was like whatever. It was cheesy.
I just couldn't connect. And I remember I stole a Kiss album because I thought I needed to listen to whatever everyone else was
Right.
listening to, but it didn't inspire me to get in a band. It just didn't, it wasn't it. And
Had you seen them live though?
I just saw the photos. I'd never seen them. No, of course. My parents wouldn't I had to sneak all this stuff. I had to sneak albums into the house because my parents were very
Where did you listen to them? Like
I would sneak them in my bedroom, and then my parents would go to sleep, and I go into the living room where the thing was, and listen like as quiet as I could. I didn't have headphones or anything like that. I was just on a turntable.
Did they ever catch you?
They used to set the alarm to keep me in at night because I'd sneak out so much. I was such a fucking horrible teenager.
So
the
was
worst
I.
of
I get
the
it.
worst.
I get it.
You
Same.
know? And it's like my kids are great now, and I hope there's not going to be some karmic repayment of my sneaking out and all of it,
So
Are your kids creative?
I mean, I would hope to think so. I mean, my son is obsessed with Fortnite, so it's like, he was obsessed.
There's dances in Fortnite, right? Like,
Yeah, there's dances. So he's super into the dances, and he
Right.
makes me do the dances, which is so like
That's
I feel
hilarious.
like
I like
I'm
that.
the dad, And my son's an amazing artist, and my daughter's very interested in singing. So,
Artists like painting?
like drawing. Yeah,
Drawing,
he's
yeah.
just a great. I don't know if it's painting, but it's like he's just
Oh,
draws
yeah,
all
drawing.
day,
So-
every day.
So they're creative, but in different ways than you're creative.
Absolutely. I mean, I think for them, my dad, the nuclear physicist, and then me, the producer, musician guy, they're going to probably push back to a certain extent. I can't imagine that they're going to be as obsessed with music as I was, because music changed everything for me. I mean, no matter what was going on at home. And I just want to, right when I walked in here, by the way, because I grew up in such a punk rock culture, we had this one house that had like the cool mom, and it was all about... She was such a hippie.
Oh no.
Sarah's the cool mom for sure.
Has it gotten to that
This
point?
room and the smell, it just takes me right
Yes.
to
Oh, I
incense.
love that.
And the patchouli, I'm like right there. But it was like a punk rock house, but she was a hippie.
For me, all of these things like sage, incense, Palo Santo, crystals, all of these things. We'll get there in a minute.
Yeah.
But they just, I don't know, they're like tools for me to just like connect, I don't know, clear the air, calm my mind. I'm like a hippie in that sense, I guess.
And then how much connection do you have between the higher power of today, the sage and the incense, and the higher power of youth, like the Stations of the Cross and all that?
I am completely anti-religion. But I am extremely spiritual in the sense of I believe there's a God, a spirit, a source energy, something bigger than us.
Yeah.
I don't see it as like this dude in the sky. I have I've gone back to like Egypt and aliens, and I'm sort of, I'm a little kooky when it comes to that, but I no longer at all
It's so
subscribe
interesting.
to religion.
I hear people talk about all the time, like growing up in like Catholic or Christian households, and then like pushing the church away. And I of course didn't. I grew up Jewish, right? So
right.
for me, it was like Hebrew school was it was something I did just to have a bar mitzvah so I can get presents when I
Right.
turned 13.
Right.
Like literally, I could care less about anything religious growing
Yeah.
up. And in fact, was basically like my stepfather was like, would tell me when I was a kid, he's like, when you die, everything just turns black.
Oh shit.
he's like, I just want you to know that there's no such thing as like afterlife or anything like that. It's like a TV. It just turns off.
Oh my God, that's so like sad.
So like I grew up with no spiritual connection whatsoever.
Right.
And so like, I think being sober, which I am, like my first time I ever had any sort of spiritual connection was actually prior to getting sober. Like I would like pray to God to like let the high stop. It was like the first time I ever prayed to God in my life. I was like,
Right.
please let me just like go to bed. Please, before the sun comes up. God, if you could just let me go to bed before the sun comes up.
Right. Yeah. You're talking to something, an
Right.
energy other
Yeah.
than yourself.
And
I
so,
know.
but I didn't actually have any kind of connection until I got older, until I found like a spiritual thing. Like, so I wasn't like forced into spirituality younger. It was just something that like I found out of a necessity from my life.
Right. Yeah.
Where other people were pushed away from it or like ran away from it.
Well, for me, not to get too much into religion, because I could talk about it all day, but it turned me off going to Catholic school because my mom was a dancer. We had so many gay guys around us. And I'm hearing in school, homosexuality is a sin. They're going to go to hell. I'm like, oh, so my godfather's going to hell. All my parents' best friends are going to hell. You should masturbate. You shouldn't have sex before marriage. Like all these bizarre rules. To me, I was raised very free. My parents were just free hippie rock and rollers. So I'm like, what is this shit? So it turned me off so far the other way.
Yeah.
Not to being atheist, but just, I don't know. I just don't subscribe to it. But I do know what you mean going into a church. Even though I don't necessarily believe the same principles, there is this calming energy there because when I was little, oh shit, almost spilled my coffee everywhere.
Almost.
Because when I was little, that's what I grew up with. So it was like, I don't know. I get that calming energy.
Yeah, I just don't know about. As a kid, I was definitely anti, but I also I just knew that they were wrong. When my dad said,
Same.
when he told me, you do not indulge in the pleasures of the flesh until after marriage, like the idea when they found a Playboy in my room, that was the conversation. It's like, don't jerk off, which is the last thing I would ever tell a fucking 14-year-old boy.
Seriously.
Don't do that. Like, what are you going to do? Start killing animals.
Literally.
If you can, like,
That'll
you know what I mean?
ruin
Like,
you
jerk
sexually.
off till you're dehydrated. That's what I'm telling my son. Like, if you put like a
Can we
like,
quote you on our
put a note on the
Instagram?
door that's whatever, like a purple little sticky. That means do not come in. That means everything's getting sticky.
That
And,
is
like,
so hilarious.
yeah, because I mean, but I knew that my dad was wrong. Even at 14, I knew.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew probably at 12 that like the idea of hell and heaven didn't make logical sense.
Right.
It just never connected. And I think being good and not hurting people connected with me, but it was just boring. I mean, it's just boring. It's still boring.
So
But
boring.
I like the music.
Yeah.
You know, I remember the Our Father song that they
Me
had.
too.
You know, and I just my dad sang so. I mean, he really couldn't sing, but he sang so loud, and I
love that.
I connected with him being so passionate. My mom and dad met as virgins in Catholic college, right?
Wow, oh
So
my
I mean, it
gosh.
was really the dedication they had. Because I like all of us, if we're in creative businesses, we connect to the feeling of it.
Yes.
Right? To the passion of it. And my parents were so passionate about the religion that I couldn't deny that.
Right.
But I knew that, like, when I go to confession and I had already broken in the community center, I've robbed houses, I'd stolen cars, I had been drunk and high on any drug ever
Okay.
at 15 or 16. Like, when I'm going to confession, I'm not saying any of that.
Right.
I'm saying,
You're lying.
I'm lying.
Yeah, same.
I'm lying to the priest.
Are you confessing that you secretly listen to a Kiss album in your room?
Probably. That was
You're
probably
like that's like worse than all the other stuff you were doing.
Yeah, I fucking hate Kiss. I'm just going on the record.
You're like
nothing personal.
You're like you're like yeah, I stole cars, I did drugs, and the priest's like, yeah, cool. You're like, I listened to Kiss at midnight. They're like, okay, you're in
All right.
trouble.
Say
Here's-
5
this
Hail
is it. You're
Marys.
going
But
to
yeah,
hell.
no. But here's the thing about like getting older to switch, just whatever to switch is like I've really gone back and I try to be open minded and not really be that guy, because as a kid I had to pick a side. It had to be either punk rock or the mainstream. As a kid, I had to pick a side on which kind of music, and I kind of secretly didn't, but I really have tried to go back to Kiss. I have tried, you know. And it is
Dude, you don't have to go back
It is
to Kiss.
intolerable fucking music. But I'm saying this because Bruce Springsteen was the same way. I mean, they say contempt prior to investigation.
Yeah.
As a kid,
Yeah.
I saw Born in the USA. I saw the blue jeans.
Yeah.
I saw the handkerchief out the back, and I'm like, this guy just loves America. Like, whatever. I don't care.
Right.
I don't want to listen to this. I don't care. But as an adult,
Yeah.
I went back. I remember and I had such this like contempt for Bruce Springsteen for some
Wow.
reason, without knowing really
Right.
what he was talking about. And I was stuck in Omaha, Nebraska on tour with Goldfinger. There was one TV station that worked in the hotel room, and it was like I couldn't sleep. It was 2 a.m, just super insomnia, and it was HBO, and it was Bruce Springsteen live, and I was like, whatever. So I turned it on. And right when I turned it on, he was playing Born to Run, right? Which I'd never heard. And just the first thing I hear come out of his mouth, he goes, "Tramps like us, baby, we were born to run." And I just start hysterically crying, like on the spot,
I love it.
hysterically crying. Like, this guy knows exactly what my life is. Connected instantly.
That is incredible.
I
But
think I want to get that tattooed, actually. It's one of my favorite lyrics.
And now I haven't seen him play, but
you need more tattoos, by the
I
way.
know, I really do.
I know you need more face. It's time for the face.
Oh,
like all the
God,
kids,
it's
all the
kinda
kids are
creeping
getting.
up.
Yeah.
So so let's just get into Goldfinger.
Mm-hmm.
How did you lead up to starting that band? Like, or when did you start it? What were you in bands before? How'd you meet the guys? Like, what was the process?
I think we talked about this a couple of days ago too, like the idea of I knew at 12 what I was going to do. And none of my friends, I don't think a lot of my friends still know what they really want to do.
Seriously.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that as a kid, all the adversity and all that stuff that I had to go through with, like, you know, my parents disowning me and kicking me out of the house and being kicked out of school, going, you know, all the shit that I had to go through to get here. I mean, it's a journey like all of us have. You know, I wouldn't have bet on me. My parents thought I was going to be a homeless, like dead drug addict by the time I was probably 18. They would have bet real money that I would be dead by 18.
Wow.
Right, by the way I lived my life.
So you really rebelled.
I was the worst. I was a cutter. I was a
Shit.
full-blown drug addict in every sense of the word. And I was a runaway. I was just I was the worst teenager you could ever imagine. But knowing what I wanted to do at 12 years old,
It was
like
your
it
saving
probably, and listening to music, even today, like if I'm tired, I can get amped up. If I'm amped up, I can get relaxed. I mean, music still speaks to me in ways that prayer, meditation, that nothing else can hit me the same way. Now that I don't, I was just thinking when you were talking about doing drugs and being sober, or whatever, like if you put a gun in my head and said, do this cocaine right now, John, I'd be 911 instantly. If someone forced me to do drugs right now, it'd be because I've been clean for so long, but I knew what I wanted to do. And so I started my band at 12 and we toured. We did shows with Bad Religion and with...
At 12?
At 12. I was touring California at 12 and
But
when
it
I
was
still in high school.
Under another name or...
Family Crisis was my first band. And we were like a straight up Social Distortion kind of... It's very much like Goldfinger, like just a punk band. And then I've been in other bands. That band broke up and been in other bands. And I knew... when my other bands failed, that my roots, how to get back to my roots, which are just really basic 3-chord punk rock songs, that I needed to start when I was selling shoes on the promenade. I started Goldfinger just because, actually I had some help. Todd Sullivan, who signed Weezer, was a friend of mine. And I had one side out after Family Crisis, I started a band called the Electric Love Hogs, which is the best band name of all time.
Love that name.
Just saying. And we got signed. Tommy Lee produced our record. So we had like potential. I toured the world, and then we got dropped, and I had to go back to work retail. And so I was selling shoes on the promenade at Nana, selling
That
creepers.
was my favorite store.
Yeah,
Oh
you
my
were probably there. Because that place
God.
closed after I quit because I was the only reason they stayed open.
Damn.
But it was like selling shoes pushed me to say I cannot do this the rest of my life. I cannot be a retail sales guy for the rest of my life. And so I went back to my roots. I started listening to all the old Elvis Costello records, the Jam, the Buzzcocks.
Well, when you were working there, were you still writing? Or you just kind of like, you were so scarred from being dropped that you were like, I just need to like take a break from it, from creativity?
Look, the scarring, it's like that idea like I just talked about, like being a victim. Like how long can I really stay in that? Oh, if only the A&R guy did this. If only my band members were better writers or whatever, I would blame other people. All that did was hold me down.
Yeah.
It just held me back.
I feel like people fall into that trap a lot.
Of course. It's human nature to want to blame other people.
Yeah,
it's like, look at our fucking president. It's like the way that it's like not taking ownership for your own part. And the only way I can win is by saying, this is what I could do better. This is what I did wrong. And that's kind of what eventually, getting dropped was the best thing, because the Electric Love Hogs, we were a great live band. And we were a band for 3 years. During that 3 years, we got signed. I worked at Aardvarks on Melrose at the time. I was able to.
I love Aardvarks on Melrose. Oh my God.
Probably
I literally
been in
just
all of
became,
these.
I was just like 10 years old, like 2 seconds ago.
It's still there.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I was able to quit that. I was able to like do music, so I was really grateful for that. And we had Pearl Jam open for us. Rage Against the Machine played their first show opening for us.
For Electric Love Hogs?
Yeah, Tool opened for us. And we had all these amazing bands we were able to take out on the road. Like I took Rage Against the Machine out on their first tour ever. I was able to do that. And this is a way precursor for me being A&R or me being kind of an artist developer. It's like having that history, I would never want to change it, but we were not meant to be successful. I thought we were going to be the next Red Hot Chili Peppers because we were like a funk metal band is what we were doing, but the songs were fucking awful. Terrible songs.
Is it the same band or same band members?
The bass player is the same in Goldfinger. Everyone else two of the guys went on to start that band, Orgy.
Oh yeah, of course.
So they started that band, and then
was it Blue Monday cover they did?
Yeah,
or something?
they did. That was their big song, right? And so
from Electric Love Hogs, did you go to Goldfinger?
That's exactly right. So that band broke up, and at the time I was devastated. I had to go back to work retail, and I was like, my dreams have been crushed.
After Electric Love Hog, you went back to retail?
I worked at Nana after Electric Love Hogs broke up, right? So we broke up in 1991. And then I worked retail from 92 to 94. I went back to working retail. And at the time,
you definitely sold me shoes.
For sure. It was like Creepers, Doc Martens.
Like that's so crazy. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So at the time I was like, my life was over. I was 25 and I was like, how am I going to restart my career as a rock and roll musician at 25?
It's done at 25.
I'm like fucking so old. That's literally what I thought. I'm like, how am I going to do this again? So I did, there was a moment there where I kind of like played a couple what in between zones. So I had a cassette tape made that had one song of like Electric Love Hogs version 2. I had done a bunch of demos because I had bought this 12-track recorder from our Advance. I recorded a bunch of songs, and then on the other side of the tape was like what was the beginning of the genesis of Goldfinger, and I had just done a bunch of 3-chord punk rock songs, and I sent it to Todd Sullivan, and he said, "Do this." He said, "This is way better than whatever the Electric Love Hogs is. Do this." And so he was the catalyst that pushed me over the edge to really kind of focus on more songwriting and song-driven music, because at the time I was more interested in how do we choreograph like the craziest mosh pit of all time in the Love Hogs. It was more about a high energy show. How do I jump off the tallest PA, the biggest balcony of all time? And then Goldfinger was more about songwriting. Like, how do we get to the chorus? How do we write about something that makes me feel like, how do I get goosebumps?
Is that the first time you, I guess you always took songwriting serious for the time that you were doing, but is that the first time you kind of started feeling the craft of songwriting? I mean, look, so Family Crisis, I wrote everything, and it was like I was in love with my first girlfriend, Erin Donovan, who didn't even know I existed. So
hi, Erin.
Hi, yeah, exactly. Shout out to Erin.
Yeah, so
follow her on Instagram.
So she didn't even know I existed, and I had stolen my sister's little necklace, like $8 necklace, and wrote a poem for her, stuck it in her mailbox when I was 12, and that became the first song I ever wrote. Was that poem.
That's incredible.
And so, but it was like that era of my life where it's like everything revolves around that girl in English class that you're like, and you're sitting 2 chairs behind her, like all that. That was when I really like, I felt like I knew I could do something other than school. I knew that I could do something good. And then I lost my way a bit. The Love Hogs was like 5 guys in the band, and we all, quote, wrote the music, you know what I mean? Where someone like would come up with a riff, and I'd have to write my melody around this like chromatic, weird, math rock. And it was like, awful for me as a lyricist and as a guy that write melodies over these weird chords. So I lost my way, and then I came back with
Without hearing that, I get why Todd liked Goldfinger.
Yeah. I'm sure. I mean, as an A&R guy now, I can't even listen to that record. I mean, Tommy, the great thing about that, and like I said, nothing happens by mistake in this world. No matter what you're going through right now, whatever pain you're in, there's a reason you're in it. It's so later on you can learn from it and not have to go through it again and figure out what is your solution. Because when I used to have panic attacks when I'd work at Nana, like I'd literally I think I'd be having a heart attack, that panic attack feeling. And I figured out a way to get through it at the time. And then by the time I had to fly to Australia on a 22-hour flight, I knew how to get through the panic attacks because I figured it out when I didn't have to be on a 22-hour flight.
Right.
But I can't see that at the time. At the time, I can only see the blinders like a horse.
Totally.
Only right in front of me. But now I can see, like Steve Jobs says, you can only connect the dots going backwards to see how you got here. No one has a crystal ball.
Yeah.
Nobody can see forwards. But at the time, I was like, why am I going through this now? It was awful. But now I can see it.
Divine order. That's what I say. It's like everything is just divine order. We learn from it. Even your band, even the Love Hogs, you're saying you learned this sort of performance, crawling on things and whatever, how to give your all. And then the next band, you were like, oh, songwriting. So you already did that like training almost, but you didn't even know at the time.
I didn't.
It's amazing when you look back on it.
Also, you mentioned something about like getting, obviously we know you do A&R stuff now, but like, and like when you were taking bands out on the road, it was like A&R without knowing you were A&Ring because you were doing Rage Against the Machine, etc.
Right.
But like I saw online somewhere that you were like A&Ring like at the same time as the first Goldfinger album came out, you were A&Ring other bands. I mean, that's like a crazy creative hat to like wear. Like you're launching this band that becomes like this iconic rock band, and you're also like mentoring other bands.
Yeah, I think I can teach I can show my kids by taking out the trash. I'm being good to our community of our household. I'm taking the trash out to the garbage can. I can show them, but I can't make them see how service feels good, how being of service feels good until they're ready to like find out on their own, to be able to help the new kid in their school to say, hey, These are my friends. They can be your friends as well. Until they get to that point that they want to be of service to another human, it's really hard to do that. And by the time I had gotten there, I had gone back to working a $6 an hour job. I'd gone back to like the people that I was doing interviews, like this guy Ricky Rackman. I don't know if you remember him on
Yeah, of
Planet.
course.
So he used to interview the Electric Love Hogs back in the day on radio. And then I remember he came in, Nana, and he's like, "Hey, what's up, bro? How you doing, Feldy? Like, how's the band?" And he doesn't know I'm working there because I'm just standing up there.
Right.
And I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing really good. You know what size shoe are you?" You know, like having to be that guy to go back to, I'm not in a band anymore. I'm just a shoe salesman.
Right.
Like that I had to eat that humility and be that guy. I knew that I could give back to a young band,
Right.
what nobody really did for me. Because the guy that signed Goldfinger to a record label was, I mean, he really did not do right by me. And I signed Real Big Fish, which was his biggest band, and they signed the Cherry Poppin' Daddies, which went on to be a platinum selling act. And he never kind of just said, "You know what, brother, you brought me all this. Let me give back to you." He didn't do that for me. And I knew by that experience that I had to do something different. And I also watched Tommy Lee do what bring me to his house, and like Heather Locklear, who was fucking hotter than Heather Locklear back
Wow,
in 1989. Nobody. So he brought me to his house, into his home, and Heather Locklear made us dinner.
That's iconic.
And like just talked to us about like her experience in life and was our friend. That's what I wanted to be. I want to be that guy. He helped us. I want to do that to other bands, you know? So I took what I liked and I left the rest behind. And the guy that signed Goldfinger, I didn't want what he had. So when I was ready to, you know, when I found Show Off, which is the first band I found, we played Fireside Bowl in Chicago, this little punk rock bowling alley. Show Off opened for Goldfinger, and I was there early and I watched them. Like, these guys are awesome live band. They gave me their demo cassette, and their cassette fucking sucked. So it was terrible. It just didn't connect. I'm like, how is it so good live
Right.
and so terrible on record? I knew from my experience of making the 3 albums I had made at that point that I could help them. Even though I wasn't really a producer in 1996, whenever that was,
Right.
I knew I could help them. So the crux of it was being of service. But I can't show someone how to be of service until they're ready, until I was
Sure.
ready to know how good it feels to help somebody else. It wasn't about being an A&R, having a job, which is sometimes the problem now, to be totally honest, because my life is so big and I have kids. A lot of times I'll take a project for the money and it never works out.
Right.
No.
Right.
Never works out.
Never, right?
Never. Has to be because of the passion and the love, and that you know you can bring something to the project that they don't already have,
Right.
that you can help.
Totally.
For me, at least.
So, was there a transition period from Goldfinger and your success in that band to going on to produce and write for all of these other acts that you've worked with, Blink-182, Good Charlotte, 5 Seconds of Summer, all these acts? Were you doing it at the same time? Did the band end and then you transitioned into that? Like, what was that process?
You know, it's much easier when the universe makes the decision for you, because when the
Right.
universe said, the Love Hogs are done, everyone's quit, you're dropped, there's no choice. I really had no choice. And so that was a really challenging period of my life when I knew I had signed 2 bands, and then Goldfinger was touring Salt Lake. We were in Salt Lake City, and the singer for The Used crept on our bus with his cassette and said, "Here, check out my band." And then he was so drunk, and then he got kicked out the band. Everyone's like, "Dude, fuck that kid. He's just so annoying." But the next day I listened to the cassette, and I'd never heard anything like it. I'd never heard someone sing like him. I mean, he sounded like his scream. He had these like Kurt Cobain, like version 2 with this Michael Jackson singing voice.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I've never heard a kid sing like this. No matter how fucked up he is, I have to work with this kid.
Right. He definitely had that it factor.
100%. Like, and he would have never worked on The Voice. He would have never worked as some, you know, he needed to do it his way. And that's how we did it with The Used. We did it his way, you know? And when I found them, Goldfinger was still, I mean, this is on album 4, and we never became Green Day or Blink. We never kind of got to arenas, but we were doing, you know, 3,000 to 5,000 seaters. We were big.
Sure, yeah.
We were doing well, but I found The Used, and then I did a demo. I did a 3-song demo, and I gave it to my manager, who played it for, you know, maybe 2 A&Rs, and it was like, every single label. And this kid, Bert, would go, like I remember Clive Davis was, we showcased for Clive Davis, and he just would grab, I remember he grabbed Jason Flom's shirt, pulled him to his face and threw up on the floor right next to him, like screaming so loud, just like threw up on the floor, and everybody was like, we have to have this kid.
Oh my God.
We have to sign this kid. He's not scared. He's like nobody I've ever seen.
Wow.
And so I had this bidding war, and I knew, like, how am I going to be on the road? Because Goldfinger still has the world's record for, we did 385 shows in 1996, which is the most shows played by a touring band in the history, like Guinness Book of World Records, right?
That's insane.
So we already have that. How am I going to do that and mentor? How am I going to do it?
Right.
You know, and so I was at this kind of turning point in my life where we had gone 4 records deep. We hadn't really grown past what we were, and I made a decision. I made a decision.
But you didn't but you didn't have, like, you said it as like it's an option. Like, how am I going to do both? You didn't have to do both, but you felt like creatively, like all those parts of you were like alarms were going off. Like you had to do both. Like you wanted to be in the band, you wanted to be on the road, you wanted to write songs, you wanted to produce for other people. Like it was like you had to do it. It was something inside of you, because you could have said, like, you could have earlier decided, I'm going to do one or the other. You know, I just don't have time. I'm on the road. I'm just gonna be in a band.
I knew I had to do The Used. I knew that this band was going to change the world. I knew it and that was the turning point, because the guys in my band would have to not, when I was producing their record or helping kind of find them a manager and do all the stuff it takes to kind of grow, develop a new artist. I couldn't be in Germany or Australia, just because at the time it wasn't like you can really FaceTime someone like you can now. It was very different 15, 20 years ago. So the guys in the band said, you know, really, like, if this is going to be your primary job, you know, we can't really continue. So it sort of broke. One of the guys quit in the band, and then another guy quit. And so it became like I'm trying to piece together Goldfinger with like all these random friends whenever we had shows. But that was really it. The Used was kind of the end of Goldfinger being like my primary purpose.
And it kind of just dissolved on its own.
It was a natural thing. I mean,
Right.
it really, like, I mean, The Used became such, I mean, Bert found My Chemical Romance. I mean, he really discovered and developed, and the singer of The Used found that band. And between The Used, they did this tour called The Taste of Chaos, really. And it was like this band, Story of the Year, that I found, The Used and My Chemical Romance. Those 3 bands toured, and that was whenever that was, 2001, 2002, and that changed everything.
Yeah.
I mean, even today, like metalcore, all these bands exist because, I mean, there was like hardcore music prior to that, and of course Refused made a great record, but it was never screamy verses and super melodic choruses.
Yeah, it was like pop melodies.
Super pop choruses is what kind of Bert created. I mean, he really created that sound, and because of that scene, whenever that is, 17 years ago, it still exists now in whatever you call it, alternative rock.
Sure. So then from there, is that when you sort of, the producer, writer hat started?
It was like, I knew
happening?
I love the idea of just sitting up. Like, I used to have this coffee machine. It was like a Mr. Coffee, one of those, like, you know what I mean? Like dollar store coffee machines.
Mr. Coffee.
Yeah. And we would just, you know, it would have the coffee filter, and we just put coffee beans or coffee grinds in it.
Yeah.
And we would never change the filter. We would just add
Oh my God,
fresh.
it's
So it was just,
disgusting.
this mud would come out.
Yeah.
And I
That's how you get a good steak. You know, you never clean the grill, right? It's like the same thing.
it was fucking awful. But we would get this mud, and we would just drink this like thick mud at 2 a.m. when I was making that first Used record, and I would just experiment. I didn't know anything really about EQ or compression or bus compression or master fader. It was like I had this 2-inch tape machine. I made my first album on tape, and then I transitioned to Pro Tools for the Used first record. But I mean, I knew at that point I was going to be a producer. The writer-producer thing definitely came later, because the Used was, I really wanted them to be unaffected, if that makes sense. Like, what they brought
You
was
wanted to
so
capture what
unique.
you wanted to capture what he did and then just you know, amplify that.
My job with the Used was a producer, arranger. Like, I mean, I guess I was like I'd arrange all the strings, and I was kind of a composer, but I was never. He would write all of his own lyrics. You know, I knew my lyrics were too straightforward for what he did. Like, you know, his song titles were like a box full of sharp objects and The Taste of Ink. Those are the names of his songs. And
Right.
he had a very unique perspective on life, and he had. I mean, I feel like all of us probably had shit happen as kids to allow us to be here and have such a lovely career. But he had, the worst story of anyone I'd ever heard. And so I knew his words need to be spoken through him.
Amazing.
Did you think at that time though, like, okay, I'm not writing, I don't want to affect what he's doing, but this is going to lead to me writing and producing for other bands? Like, did that thought ever cross your mind, or you were just like, this is what I'm doing right now, and I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but this is what I'm going to do right now?
Look, I'd found, I'd signed 2 bands, and I was still not having to sell shoes. Goldfinger was still doing well enough, and I had, I'd get these like $20,000 or $30,000 publishing checks, and so I could kind of make ends meet in my little room I was renting. But it was, I never really thought like the shit that I don't know how much you guys think about mortgages and our car leases, and I never.
I hate it.
Unfortunately, now more than I'd like to.
I never thought about that shit back then.
No, never.
It was just like, how do I just keep playing shows? That's all I cared about. How do I find the next band, and how do I find a label that's going to sign my next band so I can do this? But it was never about like a savings account or a retirement fund. It was like, this shit is the fucking worst. Adulting is
I hate thinking about that shit. I feel like sometimes I think about it and I'm like, because I lived in a studio with no shower and like cockroaches at one point. It was disgusting. And sometimes I think that it was so much easier in a way when you had nothing. Like there's this Bob Dylan lyric I love, like when you have nothing to lose. And you're just fucking going for it, like balls to the wall.
You should also get that tattooed on you.
There's just so many things I need to deface my body with. But I don't know. I always try to remember that now. Like, if everything goes to shit, I'll be okay because I have the music and I have my, I don't know, I have this creative source.
Well, let's get into that, because I think that the one thing that can stop your creativity is thinking about all of that stuff.
Same, I agree.
I think it's the hardest thing in the world is to be creative when you have other stuff on your mind like that. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like, how do you separate that? How do you, it's not natural for us to be like, okay, all of this stuff I'm stressing about, I'm going to put it aside and go be creative right now.
Right.
Like, it's hard to bifurcate it. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's on your mind. Mm-hmm. So, I feel like there's things that you need to do, like routines and stuff.
Yes. And that brings us to...
Sarah and I talk a lot about spirituality and having a spiritual practice, which I know means a lot to you. And it's something that we like to call the daily.
The daily.
Where's your harmony?
That's a Sarah solo. That's a Sarah solo song.
That's our little intro.
Anyway,
epic song.
So, what are
100% writer, Sarah Hudson.
Yeah.
Thank
what are
you.
your daily routines? Like, how are you able to separate or prepare yourself to be balanced, to be creative?
So what I do every day, I'll tell you what I do every day.
Yeah,
no matter what.
Tell us your daily
I make
routines.
a gratitude list every day with at least 10 things I'm grateful for every day.
And is this in the morning?
In the morning. First thing, when I wake up, my head is loudest. So in the morning is when I'm most freaked out about life, most like the shit's going to go wrong. This, what I could have done better. Like I'm rehashing some conversation that it may have gone a different way, like the morning. So the longer I stay in bed thinking, the harder it is for me to get on track during the day. So if I laid in bed like for a half an hour just thinking and not doing anything, like it's going to take me like probably 3 hours. It's like 5 times harder to kind of get going. So I wake up, I go straight on the elliptical. I have an elliptical in my house.
Okay.
I go on that for 22 minutes. That's my magic number. And then I box.
Why 22 minutes?
22 minutes because they say 20 minutes is the magic number for anxiety, like working out, having a cardio workout for 20 minutes so I could do an extra 2. I don't know if it's some superstitious thing.
I love it.
Well, I get to 20 and then I go all the way. I go to 25 level on the elliptical, so I push all the way. Yeah. So I do 20 minutes and then I go for a hike with the dogs and I make my gratitude list on the hike with my dogs. I meditate for 20 minutes. Sometimes I'll meditate before the elliptical.
Wait. So when you make your gratitude list on the hike, are you doing it in your head? Are you writing it in your phone?
I'm writing it in my phone.
Okay.
I'll actually Siri it because I'll be on the hike and I'll Siri it into my phone and I'll just talk.
And really quick, let's talk about the gratitude list because that's something I also do too. I do 10 things every morning that I'm grateful for. And it's so incredible how it changes your whole demeanor when you're grateful. Like, at least for me, I was at a time in my life where I was so anxious and everything was full of fear. And it was all I could see was just like negativity. And as soon as I started that gratitude, every morning, I read this book called, I don't know what it was called. It's by the author of The Secret. Oh, it's called The Magic. And it's about doing a gratitude list every morning. And as soon as I did that, I swear to God, like 30 days, I did it in a row. The universe the door fucking opened and like opportunities came in, people came into my life, my demeanor changed, everything just changed. Mm-hmm. And it was incredible.
The hardest thing I have talking to young, aspiring, like when you're a kid and you're out there after your parents have sort of stopped paying your bills and you're out there trying to figure it out. That's the hardest thing to talk about is they think you're John Feldman. You've already got a career. You've already got money. You don't understand. Right. Anyone, that's the thing is anyone, at one point I had nothing and I had to make the decision to do these things that didn't seem like they were ever going to work.
Right.
But it is contrary action, like exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
You cannot be grateful and resentful at the exact same moment.
Totally.
You can't be. And like there are so many things to be resentful about, all of us. I do not read comments on any social media. I do not watch the news. I mean, these are decisions I made for my life so I can be happy.
Yeah.
Because look, I have children and like I have real shit that I can't go out there and press that resentment towards whatever's happening in the world that I have no control over.
Sure.
There's no point in me watching shit that I can't control and going, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. So when I make my gratitude list, it's all about like, I mean, how amazing is everything. Like just thinking about, we're talking about gravity earlier, like the idea, this is already worked out.
Yeah.
And I believe truly that whatever God is, you know, whatever you want to call God, the ocean, the universe, the, you know, gravity, whatever you choose to call it, already has it worked out. It's just my job to get out of the way.
Exactly.
Get the fuck out of the way, because the more anxious and angry and resentful I am, the harder it's going to be for whatever the universe has in store for me to come true and to happen. So I have to get out. So making that gratitude list allows me.
One of my favorite things, and I know you've definitely heard this saying before, and I'll probably butcher it, but is that if you made a resentment list, it's probably this. Most of the things are the same things that are on your gratitude list. Right?
That's right. Like, cause like my wife,
Right.
I have chosen to be in a monogamous relationship. I mean, I love my wife. We've been together for 22 years and I've chosen to go this path. And as an animal and as a human, it kind of goes against some of our natural desires to whatever, all of it. But I've chosen to do this. And so my wife can certainly be on both. I mean, the way that my wife chews her food, how cute, how cute is the way my wife, it could be on my gratitude list that she's such,
love this.
and it can be on my resentment
You
list.
know, like it's so true.
Yeah.
It's your perspective.
It's all perspective.
It's all
man.
perspective.
My fucking dog, my big German Shepherd, will drink out of the toilet. And so in the middle of the night when I go pee, my wife is 4 a.m. She'll be like, did you put down the toilet seat? And I can be like, why the fuck are you nagging me at 4 a.m. in my mind, resentment, or, oh, I forgot, I don't want my dog drinking my pee.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's the same exact thing that she does. It's all up to me to flip it.
That's genius. I mean, I think that's really like helpful.
No, I love how you put that, Evan. It was perfect. I mean, it's the same list.
Yeah.
It really is. My kids are screaming and I'm trying to focus on work, or my kids are like, I mean, you guys don't have kids yet, but like that when kids are like laughing, when I was growing up, I'd be at a pool or something and I'd hear kids laughing. I'd be like, oh, it's so loud.
Right.
What is wrong with these kids? Can't their parents keep them quiet? And now I hear that. It's the most joyful, lovely sound.
Right.
Most of the time now I hear that and I go, God, thank God my kids. I mean, they're always first on my gratitude. I have healthy kids and they're happy kids and I'm a great dad.
Yeah.
You know, those are like first on my gratitude list usually.
So after your gratitude list, then you meditate.
It's usually I get up, I either meditate or elliptical, one of the two. And then I train twice a week. Like I box this morning. I do an hour boxing twice a week. And that's like, and it's the same thing. It's like really hard. The guys, I mean, it's like a trainer that really pushes me.
Right.
And so like this morning, I was training with 3 friends of mine that all have the same attitude that we do, which is like, how do we have an attitude of gratitude? As cheesy as that sounds, how do we do that? And we went out there, we trained in front of, in front of the beach in Malibu. We went running on the beach. And the first thing I said when we were running as a warm up, I said, this is the best way to start our day. I said it out loud. And it set the entire hour into motion. I said, what better setting could we have to work out than the Pacific Ocean?
You could have said like, I hate running.
I could have said
Exactly.
anything, but I said that out loud.
And
then
you probably motivated who you were with, and they were like, yeah, you're right. You know, it's infectious.
It for sure happened. Everyone said it right afterwards. And I have this thing, no matter how I feel, I say, I love my life as loud as I can.
I was going to ask you about that.
I say, I love my life as loud as I can every day, no matter how I feel, whether I'm homicidal or suicidal or depressed or stoked. I say it because there's a chemical thing that happens in my brain where I say it, and then I hear myself say it, and I go, oh, you do love your life. You
That's
really
amazing.
do love your life.
I learned that from you, and honestly, like I get in my car every morning, and I go to an AA meeting, and the first thing I do when I close the car door, because otherwise I'd wake up the entire neighborhood, is I scream, I love my life.
That's amazing.
And I learned that from John. But on John's Instagram, you can see a lot of times he'll be on his hike and he'll do it on there, which I think is so interesting because a lot of people don't know why you're doing it, who follow you, and are probably like, whoa, that's crazy. Like he's just screaming, I love my life on the top of this mountain with his
love
dog.
that.
Just to talk about, because Instagram is a part of all of our lives, and I think that I have whatever. I've been in a band a long time, and I have fans that follow just to see what does his life look like on the inside, and I think there's a point. But every single time I meet some person, and it's the weirdest thing, even the woman that works the security gate at my community that I live in. I'll just drive in and I'll wave, and she'll put her arms up. She'll still say, I love my life.
That's amazing.
I love that so much.
That's the thing that happens more than anything. People just imitate it. Like I've never, as much as I've done this every day for the last 5 years. And I say it a lot because it helps me, because, I struggle with the same thing that all of us people in creative does, like anxiety and depression. And I struggle with all of it. And I have to do this for me to survive.
Right.
This is a survival tool. And there are days where it's like, it comes so easy and I really mean it. And there are other days where I don't mean it at all.
Yeah.
And I say it anyway. But no one has ever come to me and said, why do you do that? Or what does it mean? People just say, you're the guy that you say that, and I say it. And I've had people comment when I do talk to people, they say that it changed my perspective for that day when I said it out loud.
It's amazing.
It always does. There's literally no way to be upset after you've screamed, I love my life.
Right.
It's impossible.
I love it.
It's pretty amazing.
So that's so just to recap, right? Meditation, I do 2 times 20 minutes a day. I study transcendental meditation through the David Lynch Foundation. So I do that twice a day. I have a mantra that I say in the morning, and then probably around 4 is the latest I'll do it. I can't do it too close to bed because I'll fall asleep in the meditation. I work out every day, no matter what. I say I love my life every day, no matter what. I do a gratitude list of at least 10 things every day. That's
amazing.
That's what I do every day.
That's an incredible daily routine. I want to talk about your sobriety, if that's okay. At what point in your life did that come into play, and did that help your spiritual self grow? Did it help your creative process? How did things change creatively? How big of a part did that play in your creative?
I think that people that, tend to be addicts or alcoholics, there's something that's kind of missing, and that what alcohol did for me does not work the same way for my wife, who is a non-alcoholic.
Yeah,
she'll have a drink and maybe she'll feel buzzed and then say, I'm going to stop now because I'm starting to feel it. Where to me, I'm like, why would you ever? That's the beginning of the good stuff.
Right.
Why would you ever leave a beer unfinished? It makes no.
I don't understand.
It makes no logical sense whatsoever.
And I understand it. My husband's sober, and I understand it. I'm like, 1 glass of wine, I'm like, I'm done. That's it.
So that doesn't make any sense.
My wife.
You're wasting the rest of the bottle.
Exactly. And so my wife, the devout atheist, who doesn't have that piece missing, that I feel when I'm drunk, I feel I'm complete. I'm not worried about all the shit we're talking about. I'm not really, when I'm drunk, I'm not thinking about comparing myself or what I'm missing. I'm just like, woo! I am naked, so I'm the naked guy in the room.
Right.
A couple beers in, I'm just already let's go. This is how I want to live my life forever.
Yeah.
And so when I it's like the idea of being rewarded for running out of a burning building. Like that's the idea when people are like, oh, good job. You haven't had a drink or you're sober. It's like
Right.
the reason people get sober is your life fucking is falling apart.
Sure.
The wheels have fallen off the car.
Yeah.
And there's no other option. I've never seen someone get sober just because their life is sort of a mess.
Right.
It's got to become, I mean, really for it to sink in, it's got to be over, you know? And so my life, part of my life was over. And so in order for me to fill that part, I mean, my program, part of that is finding some spiritual reason for me being on this planet and some connection, you know? So I seek whatever God is. I love your tattoo, God, just to, you know, it's
Yes.
awesome. And whatever that is. And I agree with you. My being raised with the idea of some Jerry Garcia hippie looking dude on a cross with a beard and Birkenstocks, like
Right.
that would have never connected with me. You know, my
Yeah.
punk rock ethos wouldn't have really connected with that.
Me
So
neither.
I had to be able to have the ability to find my own whatever it is, and it changes. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is. And today it's my subconscious mind is my higher power. Today, last month it was a direwolf from Game of Thrones. Is what
Mm-hmm. Right.
in my mind when I pray to something, it's like I visualize, you know, this big motherly wolf that I could just cuddle inside of, you know,
I
and her,
love that.
like lay on her neck and just be taken care of. That everything is already taken care of.
Right.
Because my life experience is my proof. My life experience is no matter what, with, you know, terrible teenage, terrible childhood, all this shit. Like, I mean, in the end, I mean, maybe we can joke about this 35-year-old woman who fucking abused me. In the end, it's like,
Right.
it was looking back, it was fucking awful. At the time, I was a kid. I didn't know what the fuck, but I survived it. I survived a bunch of stuff, you know? And now I look back and I go, I've always been taken care of. Selling shoes, working at Aardvarks. I've always had this kind of path that led me to talking about how amazing my life is today. But I have to choose to do it because I have plenty of reasons. I got plenty of people out there in the real world in our business that are awful, awful people that don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
They just want to make money or they want to be successful and they'll step on anybody and walk all over everybody. I can choose to focus on those people.
Right.
How do I make it right with them or how do I make them like me?
Right.
You know, in order for me to continue to do this, but that won't work.
Right.
It has to be about me connecting with whatever that is. And today it's my subconscious mind. That's what I believe today. Like if I put messages into my subconscious mind, those things are going to come true, you know? And if I put
like that.
negativity into my subconscious mind, those things also will come true.
Yeah, no, we are. I have this tattooed, protect your thoughts, because we are what we think, you know, and we manifest. Our
Is that
thoughts
something you
manifest.
do? Is that something you do in meditation with the subconscious
I
mind?
have a mantra that the whole point of transcendental meditation is for me to transcend out of consciousness. So I'm actually just living here in the moment, and there really aren't those crazy, anxious thoughts going, you're never going to be enough, you're going to lose what you have, these people don't like you, how do you, you know, all that stuff doesn't, when I've really transcended, which in a 20-minute meditation, to be honest, I've got probably 3 minutes of that 20 is actually, I have transcended, which is really good. You know, for an active mind like mine, I mean, nobody can stop thinking. I mean, to be able to stop thinking while you're awake would mean
Yeah.
you're dead. I mean, really, that's not how we're built. We're not designed that way as thinking beings. We're designed to be always thinking. We have 70,000 thoughts a day. So my job is to not hold on to those 3 thoughts of like, that guy fucking hates me, that guy hates me, that guy hates me. How do I let go of that one negative thought
Right.
and maybe go on to those 69,900 thoughts that are positive?
Right.
Of like, look at that tree. Oh my God, the sun's beautiful. Like all those amazing thoughts that I have, how do I hold on to them rather than the 3 or 4 that are like terrible?
Right, of course.
I learned.
At any given time, that's the problem. It's like there's always like 3 or 4.
70,000 thoughts a day we have as humans.
Wow.
That's the number.
I learned transcendental meditation as well. And do you know Bob Roth? That's the guy that taught it to me. But he, but the thing that I love about it is it's like not condemning. You don't like condemn yourself for having thoughts. That's why I love it. Cause you just, for me, it's like I have a million thoughts when I start and I'm just like, that's okay. Let them pass. You know, because when I meditated before, I'd be like, fuck, I'm thinking. Oh, a thought. And then I would
Right.
self-criticize,
That's
you know?
that's the whole thing. You're just supposed to like let those pass.
You just
through.
go back to your mantra, and you just let them pass. And eventually they do. And I don't know.
They say it's like watching, you're watching a cloud cross the sky. You don't like let the cloud stay there. You see the cloud for what it is, which is just
exactly
a thought, and you
what
let
it
go.
is.
On to the next, on to the next.
Exactly. Yep.
So let's move into our last segment here. Before we
Yes.
end each episode, we like to do a segment that we call Golden Nuggets.
Golden Nuggets. Golden Nuggets is where Evan, myself, and you, John, are asked to bring in or recommend to our listeners something that inspires us spiritually, helps our creative process, quiets our mind, fosters our growth, etc. A tool that we love to utilize in connecting with our creative self. It can be a book, a meditation, a workout, a crystal, a poem, whatever it is, a tool that helps you and your creative process, your spiritual process.
That you would recommend to our listeners.
Yeah.
So I have a bunch of stuff that I do to kind of get in that mindset. I mean, I read when I'm on the elliptical. I read in the morning, and so I have 2 books I'm reading right now.
Okay.
10% Happier. I've read a bunch, which is I think the greatest book on meditation ever written. It's just really, really funny, and it talks to you like a person rather than like a guru speaking down to you. It's like
Right.
a regular person. So 10% Happier, I would totally recommend.
Okay.
I'm reading this book called 3 Magic Words, which, spoiler alert, there, I am God is what it kind of gets to the end.
Dude, you ruined it.
I know I ruined it, but I mean, it is 1,000 pages to get to that. But it's the idea that, like we talked about earlier, where we actually have, like within us, we have the ability to actually transcend beyond the negativity of life, that our
Yes.
subconscious mind does direct us in the path that's already been laid out for us. And anything that we want, we can have, based on our thought process. And how do we continue to think positively and always have that idea that like everything's provided for, and not to attach ourselves to that negativity. So that book is really kind of helped me throughout the day. It forces you to have a 30-day mental diet where if you hold on to a negative thought more than 5 minutes, you have to restart your days again. So it's a 30-day mental fast ultimately, which
I
is
kind of love that.
which is really, really
Amazing.
difficult to do. And I'm still working on my 30 days.
That's incredible, though. I love that.
Yeah, so I have the book, and I have this pranayama meditation, this breathwork meditation that started with this guy, David Elliott, who taught my friend John Paul Crimmy. And so David Elliott's on Spotify. He also has a musical career, which is, you don't want to listen to that.
No, our Dewey. Those are my favorite. Those are my favorite ones to listen to, actually.
Yeah. So, but if you're trying to get to the guided meditation, he's got probably 40 of them on Spotify. David Elliott, and then this guy John Paul Crimmy he's on iTunes,
And we did one the other day
We
before
did
our
one-
session.
John Crimmy, which has all these kind of gratitudes at the end of.
I love him.
Moments of love, moments of gratitude at the end of it. But it's very intense. So it's not.
I love the whole put it in your heart, like open up your heart, like hold it in there.
My face was like tingling. My hands were tingling. Like I just felt almost out of body in like the best way, and totally just ready to start the day. Actually,
So I use that. I use that when I've had too much coffee, which happens on the daily.
right?
Or
how
when-
much coffee do you have?
I usually drink about 10 espressos a day, which
What?
which is about probably 10 too many, but I am fucking crazy.
Wow.
At it.
Oh my God. That's what I wondered the first time I worked with you. Actually, I was like, holy shit, that he has so much energy.
Yeah.
Like, how are you? I'm like, is he on coke? He must have what's he doing? And then I'm like, oh shit, no, he's definitely not on coke.
Here's the
He's
thing.
got to be on something. But
Here's
now
the thing
I know.
though with it, like the idea of me, because I have like I'll make a matcha, like an oat milk matcha, or
I love the
or
oat
a
milk matcha.
cappuccino,
I'm into the matcha.
or whatever. But making it, in the process of grinding the beans and actually making
Yeah.
it is very calming.
Yeah.
So before I try and start to tap into the creative energy of whatever song is going to come out, because there's always something there.
It's the
Like,
process.
The process. So like for me, having my matcha, or like I make this vegan coffee shake. It has like 4 shots of espresso and this like soy delicious ice cream and some chocolate covered espresso beans. It's probably terrible for you, but it tastes amazing.
Right.
But whatever it is that I'm kind of making for the band or the writer that I'm writing with that day, like that's part of it.
Yeah.
Part of my process is having that little caffeinated drink with me, my pad of paper, and I have this one guitar I write with, or I've got my piano that I write with that I bought during the Foxy Shazam period, whatever.
Okay, my golden nugget is, well, I brought in pictures, but the actual golden nugget is prayer for me, and whatever that means to you, to whatever, I don't know, your source is. But for me, every single morning and every single night and all the time, I talk to my angels. That's how I feel like there's angels around me, my spirit guides, God, whatever you call it. And prayer for me, even if it's me just talking out loud, it gets me out of my head, and it gives me perspective, and it just, I don't know, it makes me feel safe, and it makes me feel connected, and it makes me feel like I'm not alone. So for me, I brought in a picture of my great grandmother. And this is hilarious because this picture is my grandma, my great grandma, my great aunt, and two of my great aunts, all in incredible Italian wigs.
Wow.
They were so fierce. And this is my great grandmother, Tessie. Always just made up, dressed to the nines, like incredible woman. And before she died, she said to me, she was like 98 or something. And she said, honey, there's 3 things you need to know in this lifetime. Number 1, never trust a man. Number 2, always have your own bank account. And number 3, always look fabulous. And I just, for my whole life, I was 14, my whole life, I just will never forget those 3 things. And it's an incredible story, actually, because I'm also into psychics and spiritual advisors and all of it. And I met with this psychic woman once. She's incredible, like medium reader. And she's like, there's a woman here, and she's Italian. She has this, red hair. She's cooking, which was always my great grandmother. And I knew it was her. And she said, she wants me to tell you to not forget the 3 things. I'm not even shitting you. I was like, holy shit, just chills down my spine. Wow. Whatever. If you believe in it, if you don't, whatever, it happened. It was very real to me. And she's just one of my angels. So my point is prayer, talking to whoever it is, your angels, your guides, your God, whatever it is, even talking to yourself. It's an incredible tool and golden nugget to me. And and I know my great grandmother is constantly here with me.
I think all golden nuggets, at least today, are about having a spiritual connection, which I think is so important.
Yeah.
Mine easily could have been the breathwork meditation, which I've gotten from you, John. And when I'm not doing that meditation, I do this meditation that my wife does. And although on surface it sounds kind of corny and cheesy, it's really good, is the Oprah Deepak Chopra 21-day meditation.
I've done it.
On the app.
It's incredible.
It's really amazing. If you can get over oh, it's Oprah Deepak, so it feels like commercialized in that sense. But it's really good. I mean, they really, each 21-day meditation has like a different theme. Sometimes it's like gratitude. Sometimes it's like how do you, attraction, things like that in your life. And so you can pick these different themes, and there's like a 21-day progress, this progression that gets deeper and deeper into like the energy of attraction, gratitude, like how do you, quiet your mind, there's one that deals with weight loss. There's one, they have them for like all these different things. And they're not long, they're short. And it starts off with Oprah giving like a really cool, like background into what today's meditation is going to be, and then she introduces Deepak, who comes on in his very Deepak voice, which is amazing.
I love the Deepak voice.
I'm like listening to like the Love Guru every time.
He is the Barry White of meditation.
And then he leaves you with this like Sanskrit mantra that you like then zone out, and then like I lose myself in it. Like I really do. Like I lose myself in it, and then all of a sudden, like as if it's like 2 seconds later, there's like a bell, bing, and it's like, when you're ready, open your eyes. That whole thing. And it's great. It's great. The breathwork meditation is so intense. It's almost like you almost have to be in the mood for that. So when I'm not doing that meditation, I'm doing this meditation. And I kind of like to trade them off because too much of one or the other isn't. So my 21-day meditation usually takes me about 42 days or 50 days to get through the 21.
That's okay.
For each track, but I love it. And it's an app. You download it, and it's great.
Amazing.
I love it. I recommend it.
Yes, golden nuggets.
So, Feldy, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being
I
our
just noticed
guest.
your Gryffindor shirt.
Yeah, I'm always rocking.
I'm super Slytherin. I'm gonna bleach my hair today actually because of that shirt.
Really?
Whenever I remember I was
You're a Malfoy.
I don't know if I'm a Malfoy, but I'm definitely a Slytherin. You know, whenever I bleach my hair and go on tour in England, people are. The last time I got stopped, some kids like, "Are you Draco Malfoy's
I
grandfather?
love that.
Oh my God.
Here's Grandpa."
I have as witchy as I am. I have no idea about anything.
What?
Harry Potter?
You
I
should.
Just,
You're like
Do you
Hermione.
read?
No.
Are you a reader?
books.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
of course. Yeah, but
It's the best. Those are the best books that probably
good.
are. They're so entertaining.
I have trouble getting into like fantasy books. Like I love like
That's the thing about it is it's real.
Right,
real.
okay,
It's a
okay.
documentary.
It's so real.
Okay,
And I just want to
guys.
say one thing about it. I just want to say one thing. I've identified with being a Gryffindor since Harry Potter came out. And then J.K. Rowling launched this website called Pottermore.com. And I went on there and I did just for fun, I was like, oh, I'm going to do the sorting hat
I
thing.
did that too, yeah.
And it put me in Ravenclaw.
I know.
And I was like, what?
You and me, I got in Ravenclaw too. I know.
What?
I was so
like
pissed.
my entire identity is ruined.
I know.
And I thought, it's interesting. Maybe I was Gryffindor, and maybe as I've gotten older, I've become Ravenclaw. And not to get too deep into it, because I know Sarah, you have no idea what we're
I'm
talking
thinking
about.
like I can
You have
relate.
no idea what we're talking about.
I
but-
think I'm Cher. So maybe is it like the same thing?
Exactly. No, Ravenclaw is like a house. Like it's
Oh,
like
okay.
Gryffindor is like brave and courageous, and Ravenclaw is like more intellectual and like
Oh.
like book smart kind of thing.
Did you see Mamma Mia too?
I did.
I did too. I saw it right here in the comments.
I did not.
Cher's moments are the best when she shows up.
I had shivers down my spine
Uh-huh.
when she sang Fernando. Like my cut. No, I was.
It's so good.
It's
How is
so good.
How is that not your rose?
Wait, I can actually do the best Cher. Should I
All
just
right,
do
go
it for
do it.
everyone?
Yeah.
If I could turn back time, and if I could find a way.
It's incredible.
Thank you. That's my golden nugget.
My son was like, "Why does that woman sound like a man?" That's what she said when he said when we watched that movie. I was like, "It's Cher, dude."
Doesn't she look incredible though?
She looked great.
Like what the fuck? She looks amazing.
know.
Okay.
Where can everyone find you and follow you online? If they want more golden
I
nuggets.
live in Calabasas. No.
Where does
Like your Instagram, like
Where do you
shout
want
out your
people
socials.
to
Just
find
John,
you?
yeah, John Feldy. That's my online name.
John with an
F-E-L-D.
H
Feldy. John with an H. Yeah, John Feldy.
on
you-
Instagram?
And you can find us at righttothesource.com or our Instagram at righttothesource. We'll have all of our guests' daily routines and golden nuggets up on the sites if you want to check them out and see if they inspire you. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast through our website or any other platform you listen to podcasts on.
John, I pulled this. I read tarot, and I pulled the sun card for you because to me, you're just like the brightest, most joyful light. Every time I see you, or even think about you, or work with you, anything, you're just such a light. So I want to just say thank you for being such an
Thank you,
incredible
Sarah.
light.
Yeah.
And bringing us so much joy through your music and just being you. And we're so grateful. Thank you for being here. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And don't forget, when you're being creative and you want to connect, let it go and let's go right to the source.
We create a mental atmosphere.
Yeah, baby.
Right to the source. Right to the source.
Bye, bitches.